Hello, I'm Charlotte Cummins, Director of Education and Programs for the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Latinx Art and as Activism Wisconsin discussion. This event is presented in conjunction with our current exhibition, Patrick Martinez, Sign of the Times, now on view in our new installation space called The Shop. The exhibition examines protest movements and slogans, past and present. All of the panelists in tonight's event have a background in activism, and we are fortunate to have them join us. In addition to tonight's event, we are thrilled to offer 2 upcoming artist talks. Please join us on Thursday, April 22nd at 5:30 p.m. Patrick Martinez will speak about his work with the MMoCA audience here on Facebook. And in a few weeks, we will have the opportunity to hear from Martin Crisales, performance artist and sculptor. That event takes place on Thursday, April 8th at 6:00 p.m. on Facebook. As part of our wellness series, join local instructor Sky Moss for another revitalizing yoga session. Suitable for all experience levels and admission-free, the virtual session will be broadcast live from the museum galleries this Sunday, March 21st at 6:00 p.m. We look forward to seeing you at all of these events. Please mark your calendars and check back on the MMoCA website and social media for further details. Thank you to our members, supporters, community partners, and corporate sponsors. Our panel tonight will be moderated by Añamarie. Añamarie is a poet, public writer, and educator. She is from the Mexican diaspora, which includes Colorado, Veracruz, New York, Texas, California, and now Wisconsin. She has taught writing, literature, poetics, and Chicanics and Latinx culture at Madison College, the University of Texas, Austin, the Grassroots Leadership College, and other institutions. She has collaborated with artists and activists on projects for social change for almost 3 decades. Her recent projects have responded to youth incarceration, gun violence, mental health, immigration, longing, and belonging. We are delighted that Dana will moderate tonight's event. If you have any questions for the panelists during tonight's event, feel free to drop them in our comment box, and Dana will pass them on to our panelists. Now I'm going to hand it over to Dana, who will introduce our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. I'm so glad that you're here, part of MMoCA now, and thank you to you and to Lisa Shoshani Anderson and Simone Dewing for putting, and others at MMoCA for putting together this panel and for having Patrick Martinez's work shown at MMoCA. It's such a powerful opportunity. Also, thank you to the 4 wonderful panelists whom I will introduce. And thank you to Patrick Martinez for having his works shown in Madison. I will first introduce our panelists. Andrea-Teresa Arenas, goes by Tess Arenas, PhD, was born on the south side of Milwaukee, is the founder of the Wisconsin Latinx History Collective, which will document Latinx history in partnership with the Wisconsin Historical Society, Chicanx Latinx Studies, UW-Madison, and Chicana por mi Raza Digital Memory Collective. Arenas created the Somos Latinas Digital History Project, which features oral history interviews of Wisconsin Latina activists, and is co-authoring a book on Mario Compián, one of Los Cinco, who created the Mexican American Youth Organization and La Raza Unida Party. Arenas has been active in Latinx communities for over 40 years across Wisconsin, San Antonio, Texas. She was Assistant VP for Academic Diversity and Development at UW System Administration. Añamarie America Edwards was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, and raised in Theodore, Alabama. A student at the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, Edwards is also a content creator for Gaining Visuals, an instructor for the Betty Brins Children's Museum in art-related education, and a member of the Luna Art Collective. Her work has been featured at True School, No Studios, What is Art, What is Activism, Moody Zine, Whitney Bradshaw's Outcry, and a show at Latino Arts Incorporated entitled Hyphenated Americans, show right now. She's nominated to attend the Yale School of Arts summer program at Yale, Norfolk. Edwards is a multidisciplinary artist working at the intersection of activism, social justice, identity, gender roles, sexuality, healing, and resistance, and explores these issues through material, color, and gesture. She combines photography, sculpture, performance, language, and painting to express personal narrative about her experiences as an Afro-Latinx woman in America. Araceli Esparza is a Latinx poeta. She's an MFA graduate from Hamline University with strong migrant farmer roots. She recently co-edited a poetry anthology with Flying Ketchup Press, The Very Edge Poems. She was named Wisconsin's Most Influential Latina 2018 by Wisconsin State Journal and Madison 365. Araceli founded and runs the podcast Midwest Mujeres, is a community educator, and is the owner of MWM Productions, a digital social justice company that helps build bridges to donors and audiences and create a positive impact on marginalized communities. And finally, Eloisa Gomez is the co-author with Tess of Somos Latinas, Voices of American Latina Activists. This is an incredible book that everyone needs to own. So I just have to say so. It's an amazing volume. Eloisa has been involved in Milwaukee's social racial justice issues for numerous years. In the 1980s, she was a participant in the Community Historians and Residents program in association with the Wisconsin Historical Society, for which she conducted oral history interviews of Milwaukee's early Mexican and Mexican-American residents. And she authored Latinas in Wisconsin, a photo essay. Eloisa is the chair of Comité por el Voto Latino, Latinx voter outreach in Milwaukee. She's currently conducting community research on contemporary Latina activists in Milwaukee, and she is a poet. So thank you to these 4 talented artists and activists coming today to talk about the works of Patrick Martinez, a Latinx artist from California, and as a springboard for talking about Latinx art and activism. I wanted to, before we get our conversation going, take a moment of silence, because very apropos to our discussion tonight and our work is the violence that we've all had to witness in the country this week. And I want to honor the lives of the 6 people that were murdered in racialized and gendered violence, 6 of them Asian American women, and also as an act of solidarity with the Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Desi American community, we would like to just take a bit of silence before we speak. Thank you. My first question to you all comes from this then. It's about solidarity. Integral to Patrick Martinez's work is this question of solidarity. We see in his neon pieces quotes about not only the Latinx struggle, but struggle of BIPOC people. And we were not able to show in this talk many of his other images. So if you all who are watching would like to see some of the other work he does, he works in many media and makes these incredible sort of works that look like cakes, and also these peachy folders. So if you have another screen and you want to pull up Instagram or Google him, Patrick Martinez Studio, I think if you put that in, you will see some of those works. What would the panelists like to say in terms of the issue of solidarity in Patrick Martinez's work, or in Latinx art and activism in general?
Well, I think that
Wow.
solidarity amongst and across race ethnic groups has been an historically underrepresented phenomena, that there has been more connections historically between African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Latinos, and connections historically. There's a lag there. Okay. And so I think that history of solidarity is something that needs to be enhanced, because that what you record now will shape the future. And we do need coalition building and solidarity across race, ethnic, class, and gender lines.
I want to say that I agree, and I feel like another issue would be the education on the solidarity in the past between like Asian American, Latinx American, and American people. Just because like me learning today and educating myself today on how Asian Americans and Black Americans had solidarity years ago, and it's lost now. So getting that education on how we helped each other and was in solidarity, how do we redefine that now?
Absolutely. And I think his art speaks to that, right? I've watched a couple of his videos, and just the call to actions, the neon, the impact, all of that is talking about that solidarity that you're talking about in through his medium. But I agree with Tessa, Añamarie, gracias for speaking about that unity, porque we don't do it enough. And it's, we are in a in a state where we are oftentimes not seen.
I think to join and be in solidarity, you really gotta see the struggles and relate to it. And I think the messages that our artist provides is a message that can unify us. It can bring us together. It needs to remind us about what challenges we face. Agua es life, no ice, just we have to be reminded of these challenges. And I think if we can remind ourselves of that, we can find ways to work together. It requires a relationship and as you mentioned, solidarity to make change happen.
Thank you. Yes, I was, I think a lot of us are especially moved over the past, year more by the just sort of unprecedented level of massive street protest, right? That just showed mass community solidarity. And one thing that came up thinking about Patrick Martinez's work is he himself is Latinx, he's Latino, but he's also Filipino, and he's Native American. And that's so beautiful, because there is not only community solidarity that we experience as BIPOC, as people of color, but there is the complexity of ourselves already, right? That that each of us has a different history to Latinx identity, and that Filipinos, Cuban Americans, Puerto Ricans have these imperialist histories. So the imperialism brings us together, and the decolonization and the fight against that brings us together. So I was thinking about each of your work, or at least those of you whose work I know in more, and wanting to hear about what role you saw or see of memorializing in this work that Patrick Martinez is doing, either in the neon signs or in his other works, memorializing. And then what is that role of memorializing in Latinx art and activism like we've seen in the streets and in your work? What's the role of memory? And maybe related to that, what's the role of the future?
Well, for me, the neon, right? The neon spoke to me on so many levels. So you think, like, I go back and forth in Spanish and English, but I have like a different memory of neon than most. Here in the United States, neon art is seen as like seedy or seductive, and like, it's supposed to be like downtown, like, and especially where our art museum is at. There used to be an area down the ways from there that was kind of known in the 80s and so forth. But I see it differently. Going back and forth to Mexico a lot when I was little. The churches, the neon crosses signs, they were in neon, and like it was meant for light. So internationally, that was a layer for me, like right away, that I like sunk into, and I enjoy that it took up space in our Madison, Wisconsin art museum. I love that it's taking up space there and front and center, like as a light post of like a reminder, a message. And this is not just a message that we're open, or this is what's coming for 5-cent donuts or what have you. No, this is a real message that is supposed to it be embedded for it. So like the artist really wanted us to like have embed that image and that message. I know right now with what's going with stopping Asian hate, that any message, any of our messages right now can be immortalized for the future, and we got to like find different ways. I mean, he utilized something that was old and new, right? And I think that as artists, we're going to be pushed to that, and that's kind of why I started the podcast, because I'm like, my kids don't, I mean, they listen, they consume media, they're not reading books, they're not in a Chicano arts, Chicano Latino historical class. They're not taught that way, and they're not taught our history in elementary school yet, or very little, right? Or they're not knowing all of our histories, right? Then it's not just from like the intersection between the United States and our countries, but like the intersections that happen right here in our cities. And so that's where that's why I started the podcast. And I think Tess, you're doing that digital stuff, that digital history. It's like, because we're noticing that our youth need to still have our presence, and it's so important to have our histories translated and pushed in different modes. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about when I see this stuff. It's very memorializing.
I feel a lot of the memory that has to do with the work that is by like Latinx artists does create this nostalgia where it's always about like identity or what happened in the past, because we don't know, or we weren't taught. So we go back and find all of these things that make us who we are. And I feel with this work that we're being shown, it almost holds you accountable when you stand before the piece, because when you look at it, the visual language of the piece is very beautiful, but at the same time, there's another language to it that's not exactly visual, but it holds you accountable for whatever that message may or may not be, that has to do with like the time that we're in now, and versus the time we were in the past, and how do we move forward. So that is very like, I feel the work has to do with memory in that way. Like having the visual language just go so far back and hold that viewer accountable for something that they may not have learned about, and they still may or may not know about our history, but they know that something is wrong, or they know they should stand in solidarity. Why? Because of whatever visual language that piece may have.
I love that observation. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yes.
Now I have to be more accountable.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think what I really the reason it resonates for me is that I don't think of art as holding anyone accountable. I look at it because I'm not a graphic artist. I'm a poet, sometimes, and I don't have the words to dissect a piece of art the way those of you who've been trained in it. But holding you accountable as a viewer really takes you out of a passive place and pushes you towards potential action. So
Yeah.
so that's a brilliant insight. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's deeper than what you see.
Yeah. Aren't we all, right?
Yes.
So true. So true. Lisa, how has the book like changed you, like in the work that you've done with Somos Latinas?
Are you directing that to me?
No, to Eloisa.
Oh, Eloisa, I didn't
I was
hear.
just curious because I haven't
Yeah.
talked to you guys since since right when the pandemic started. That's when
Right.
your book came out, and then it started. And
You know, it's changed me in so many levels. Yesterday, I was talking to a Latina at 16 years old who's going to take on a leadership role. She'll be on a YouTube station coming up in a couple of weeks. And I am just more deliberate at supporting our younger Latinas to seize the opportunities for leadership roles. And I just think that that's so important. I'm both reaching backwards because I still want to uncover histories of our Latinas activists. And I want to move us forward, and I want to pull our younger Latinas into roles that many of us did not have when we were younger. And so we want to make that available to them. So thank you for asking that question. I think I have so much more to learn about how to more fully realize, I think, what I'm learning in this process of having co-written the book. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that Eloisa did during our book presentations across the state was she would request a meeting with students. And I don't remember, did you ask for men and women, or did you specifically say Latina?
Whoever came.
And I just thought it was a remarkable move on her part to ground her in the next generation's thoughts, needs, concerns. And I was just so impressed by that move. It was more than I would have done after a presentation, but she always found the time before or after to talk to the youth. And I thought it was a beautiful move. So you must be very insightful now about the next generations.
I'm hopeful. That's for
sure. Right.
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I also want to say thank you for all of these insights. I sort of almost envy the process that you all were in, Tess and Eloisa, to just be, you know, doing these interviews and recording and hearing the witnessing, right, of this. You know, we've called it in Chicanx and Latinx feminist methodologies, we called it testimonial, right? Testimonio.
Yes, el testimonio.
Yeah, testimonio. And Añamarie, I also just feel so grateful for that visual artist's eye that you are bringing to looking at Patrick Martinez's work and that visual artist vocabulary.
So is he bringing in the testimonio con his arte? Is he testifying con his arte? Un poco? I mean, would you guys think that he's giving a testimony? I'm just wondering. I mean, now that we're talking about testimony and like, and the memory and like all of that is, I feel like that is a testimony, because he's, like Añamarie was saying, like his art is pushing us to like make a move, right?
Right.
And it's a testimony to the times.
That, yes, I would agree with you then. Yeah, when you put it in that context, yes, it is a testimonial, at least the signage work.
Because ICE wouldn't have been ICE. I mean, antes era la migra, right?
Right.
I mean, antes era la migra, and ICE is now, yellow, like that one song with Santa Maria, esta Santa Cecilia came out with El Hielo. So I'm like, ICE, this is a generation ago, it didn't mean anything, we just knew it as ICE. But now ICE is like, well, ICE is la migra. So I feel like that play on words too wouldn't have been relevant like 20, 30 years ago, but now it is. And that's a testimony of like the memory that we're creating new memories with the way they're unfortunately, all these ways that we're being attacked.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the visual art during these turbulent times have just been so powerful. I mean, I think maybe we've always had the murals outdoors and the other art, but somehow embracing it more because of the tremendous need for racial justice, economic justice, social justice. It's when I see some of this art out there in the streets, it strengthens me. Like Patrick Martinez's work, it provokes my thoughts. Now I know I have to be more accountable as well for what I see and how I feel and what next steps are involved. I just think art is strengthening us or challenging us or doing both.
Art has definitely evolved because now I feel like a lot of artists feel the need to explain what's going on in our head, or like explain the space around us, the space we take up. Because I know when I was protesting during the Black Lives Matter protests, throughout that whole process in Milwaukee, it got very rocky, very rough, but it was like I started to make work out of frustration.
Okay.
Because it was like, but it was still explaining and educating, but it was also me being frustrated. So like in a piece I made, Us UI, it was a photography piece where I had a model pose in very specific ways with line, and he was a Black man. So when my viewers see that, they're like, they immediately connected to being arrested or having some type of violence, when the piece was something as simple as the way I deal with relationships. But the times that we're in, art just serves as this very educational, accountable source for people to like understand where a group of people are coming from. So it's just been like, it's been difficult to make work too. Yeah. But I feel just because there's so many opinions that are going around, like, but there is no one right answer. So it's just so many people are very much like trying to explain what it means, the same definition in so many different forms.
I'd like to share that I used to write a lot of poetry, and then I decided most of my work is too personal, and I really don't like sharing it. It was a fluke of nature that it got out of my hands, and things went well. But I prefer to keep it to myself, because the other thing that for art has done for me is give me release.
Yeah.
My best, when I say my best poetry, I mean the ones that I feel they were tight when I wrote them and did require a lot of editing. It was just like a stream of consciousness saying, you got to get this down. You've got to get this down and get it out of your heart, out of your head, out of your stomach, all that's going on whenever I was under stress. So in the past 5 years under our previous president, I had not done a lot of writing, occasional one a year, and I save it on my laptop. Under his reign of terror, I must have written 7 poems, and it wasn't for anyone's edification, although I'm sure it would educate if I let it on my hands, and I have no intention of doing so, but it heals me.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that played a role for Patrick when he creates his art. I mean, as a man of color, keenly attuned to the politics and injustices of the world, not just the United States, I'm wondering if it would be interesting to find out from him, does his art serve as a healing mechanism?
Yeah.
Does anyone else feel that way about their art, that it helps you psychologically and moves you through something?
Yeah, girl, I'm doing exorcisms over here. Yeah, I'm
doing exercises. No, like really, I literally, my work has flipped to all about like a lot of my work is just focused on how do I heal. Like the one that I told y'all about prior to this, Safe Space Cocina, is literally about me cooking, and that's how I heal through times like this. So
La
it's
cocina is such a healing laboratory. La cocina is that's where everything happened. Like that's where you got your news. That's where you found out about who you were in relation to everyone else. I mean, that's everything. That's la cuna, la cocina. All of those C words are beautiful. Okay, so you talked about being a poetess. I'm going to talk about being a poet as well. You just had to wax the poetry. Añamarie, you're surrounded by poets and writers. We're very wordy. But it's beautiful that Patrick is also very wordy and utilizes words. Now, that is not his only medium. I've been following him on Instagram. He does a lot of his other mediums are like all layered. It's really interesting, like his work. This with this whole thing with Trump, I went through the same thing because I couldn't really create for a while. It was just, and then or if I did, it wasn't, like you said, it's very selfish. It's about you, and why not? And why not? Because a lot of places were taking spaces and still are. There's a lot of messages out there.
And I'm grateful that I have something that does heal me and that I can administer. I mean, there's therapy and there's your comadres and you share your troubles, but it's a great, for me, self-care mechanism. And again, I'd just be interested to hear what Martinez would say.
Definitely, me too. And we get a chance to hear him when he comes. When he comes in this space to talk to Madison. There's a few questions coming in from our audience, and I want to pose a couple of them to you first, and then we'll come back to the second. Have any of you, are there any favorite works of yours, and have any of your works ever been misinterpreted? And what have you done about that? So, preference for your works, and the question of, is there work that the way they put it is there a piece of art that continually pops into your head? And then the question of, have your works been misinterpreted, and how have you dealt with that? Interesting.
For me, the work of art that I gravitate towards is the interpretation of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I love both the historical images that have been created, but I love the contemporary expression of who people think she is. Yes. And it's always thought-provoking for me. She's in tennis shoes. She is, I think in one I saw she's wearing a bikini. Yes. It's that people own a part of who they think she is, and it's their interpretation. So to me, I have always gravitated towards the interest of how she's recreated image-wise.
Yeah.
That is so incredible, Eloisa, because the other question, and then we have another really powerful one, but that came up, seriously, talk about the spirit in the room, was the question of the sacred and the profane in Chicanx and Latinx art. So it was like you went immediately to that pairing that is, and that history that has been so powerful of using Our Lady of Guadalupe, La Lupita, and remaking her and reinscribing her. So I want to also make sure we talk about this question, which I know is going to come up, but someone asked for us to speak to the significance of Patrick's pieces being projected onto State Street, such an incredibly important space. Especially over this last year of protest, of memorialization, and that many murals are still up there. I also just want to show that this book on the artists and racial justice movement of Madison State Street just came in into my mail yesterday. So it's like an incredibly beautiful book of all the murals one of which my hija worked on. So yeah,
Nice.
so we could, but anyway, what about State Street?
Well, no ice there. I mean, I know a lot. My family worked at State Street. You know what I'm saying? Like undocumented. Like we've cleaned and done those restaurants. We've cleaned those universities. I mean, we've been there. I mean, the fact that we have somebody like showcased in there, that's good. You know, it's a nice improvement. We still got a lot more to do though. We need to own some of those. We need to own some of those stores. You know, I'm like, we're getting there still, but there's so much more work to be done. I mean, like I appreciate that the art was there and then it's there. You know, it's we're such a tourist town as well. And I hope that that's not seen, and with neon and what have you, I mean, hope it's not seen as touristy as well, because these are, you know, the lives that are there, that are working still today and tomorrow, before and after that protest, are going to still be there. And the injustices that happen on the street with our intersections, with the homelessness, in particular on that street, yeah, they still happen, and it's an unfortunate. There are still people pushing back to what's happening, the police brutality against Black people, to what's happening, and also now the retaliation of, you know, in these mass murders that have been happening to brown and Black women, and they oftentimes happen in these these places that are supposed to be like touristy, or like, you know, an attraction of some sort. So I like that his art is there and taking up space, and like, hey, we're not just here for fun, like we're gonna learn something too.
It's really, really important that you said that. Like it hit me when you were like, yeah, because these people work here before, after, and during. And we're cleaning, we're working. And the history of that space is very important when you put a work like that there, because it's very loud, if that makes sense. It's very loud.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody who can speak or doesn't understand how to speak, because I know the reading that I've done is so hurtful about how many Latin people are just so clueless, because they don't speak English. They don't understand what the best way to go is. Like, I know when Donald Trump was president, they had a lot of the Latinx community just went through hell, because it was like they were experiencing so much backlash for supporting Trump, but whole time they were being lied to, and because they didn't speak English or didn't understand. And I just really support the work being shown in a place like that, because it brings out professionalism out of art, like white wall galleries, white supremacy, what it means to be clean cut, what it means to show your work to people. This is a way wider audience. And like I said before, holding people accountable. When you walk through this space as a tourist, you need to understand who owns that land, who's on that land, who works, who functions it, because it wasn't built by white people. So it's just very, like, I think it's very strong.
Yeah. I just think it's remarkable that one of the remarkable things about the protests that took place on State Street was that art was a response. Again, so for me, it has this healing element to it, as well as an affirmation of justice, an affirmation of the African American community and people of color. But I go back to that. It's like a healing mall. When they first went up, you know, it was just so grounding.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful because it was spontaneous, and it was trained artists and regular gente out there doing it. And to me, it's like a people's gallery. And I just thought it was phenomenal. And I'm not aware of the tourism thing, but it makes me nervous. If people are coming to look at our murals, they need to be, I would hope they'd be looking at the issues that drove the murals, rather than, tour the gallery of State Street from only an artistic perspective. There's politics in every one of those.
There really is. There really is. And even to the artists that got there themselves. A shout out to Shadira Flores for organizing a lot of the people there. Anyway, that's my soapbox.
We have so many questions coming. It's really nice. Yeah, and thank you, Araceli, for the sobering piece where we feel utopian about the murals, but who's doing work and who's doing invisible work and who owns. Huge point, and Tess, to talk about the power.
State Street's like your first restaurant, your first job for a lot of us. For a lot of us, that's your first opportunity to get a job in this area, and no, absolutely. So it's really good that he's there. I'm excited. Mm-hmm.
So a question for you all about social distancing. Someone asked, it's heavy. How has social distancing, including from other artists, affected your work during this time? If at all.
It's challenged me a lot. It's challenged me a lot because I'm used to being able to talk in a group about how to heal through it, how to challenge your work more, or how to correctly get your message across. And like me, I know I used to have groups, I used to hold groups where we would just literally just sit and talk about our work and where we're frustrated with our work and what is the next thing for our work, how do we grow. And it's just, there's so much motivation that needs to be held in a time when you can't sit in that group anymore. But I will say a positive thing that has happened out of it that has also impacted a lot of work is reading. I noticed a lot of people have been reading more, especially artists, or writing, journaling, things like that. And that has very much created a mass amount of growth and just push to make work instead of questioning why you're still making work in this moment. So it's a lot of beautiful work has came out of it, but a lot of very quick and like frustrated work has came out of it too. But it all says a beautiful message as well.
It reminds us that we're inventive, because when we have a barrier, we find a way to get past the barrier. Mm-hmm. And we've had our barriers with the isolation we've had, and then we find ways how to break through it. And it's not always the same, but I think we have, like Añamarie had said, is the strengths and the weaknesses with it. And I thought I was going to be connecting more person to person or group to group with people through the book or through some of my other work. And it hasn't happened, but we've connected more with people throughout the country because it's been virtual. And so things that I never would have done have been able to do as a result.
You get so much more perspectives. Like I've talked to artists across the US and I'm like, I would have never done this.
Right. That is so true. That is so true. With this going virtual, we've done some healing groups with the library, and in particular with Black and Brown women in our community. And so I want to show you guys a little thing that these are little journals that I made like through this virtual class. And I just take a regular thing. I taught it on like YouTube. And so then we gave a bunch of kits. We delivered them for social distancing to these women's houses. And so a lot of them were elders in our community who are like at home. They can't go nowhere either. And so they got to join us on a Zoom, and we all got to teach them how to do like various classes. So I joined up with these other Black women in our community, and we did these classes on like card making. I did a journal with them. We made just different things. We did like a cutting board, like a cheese board, I forget the kuri, whatever word it is, but we made a cheese board with them and stuff, and they loved it. They loved it, and it was a way to engage with community that otherwise wouldn't. I mean, sometimes you just want, you know, even going to having them in the centers. I mean, we're so busy, but you're right. There was been a downtime to utilizing our arts and breaking those barriers for folks in isolation. Yeah.
Here's a question for you from our audience. In this time of so much turmoil for BIPOC, what gives you hope for the future? What's giving you hope right now?
The younger generations. I mean, I'm the eldest of all of us here. And for the past 15 years, while I was at Madison campus for 10 years, the cohort of students was of color, because I taught in Nelson Institute and Chicano Latino Studies. And these Latinx students in my courses were the most well-read, articulate, and vociferous fighters for justice. It is so uplifting.
Yes.
And then the Black Lives Matters, intergenerational and mixed race and ethnicity. Again, it's intergenerational, but the majority of them are young people. It is so wonderful to see again in this country. And I have great hope, but there will always be struggle. I mean, it's not going to be an easy road for the younger generations, but they are ready. They're ready. They're equipped, and I admire them so much. Yeah, that's you.
You bet.
Yes, and it's the education. That's why I'm like, I never really wanted to be an art teacher. Now I'm an art teacher, like, because it's just like there's so much to know, and I feel like, yeah, our generation is really like trying to know and trying to very much holding people accountable. Like every time I go on Instagram, there's just posts curated by young people about education on this topic. So we had that mass shooting. My whole Instagram was nothing but me. I logged on and I have done nothing but learn about Asian X history, Black history, the solidarity between Black, Latin, and Asian solidarity with activists. And it's just been so amazing. Like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with KJ Burks, the Black activist who she became well known for basically like going off on the whole like police staff. Okay. But she's like been hunted by police and things like that. And me and her have actually had a conversation, but she is very like, she's so young and she's in so much danger through so much struggle, but she's doing nothing but educating on all of her platforms. And that gives me so much hope that even younger people than me are grabbing that, and they're getting mad, and they're getting the fuel to like, yes, this is wrong, this is what I want, this, and just talking and telling. And then we have our like biracial people that are bilingual, and they're spreading that information more. So we just be clapping.
Yeah, that's right.
I agree with you so much. I live with two people who are 17 years old, my daughters, and it is a constant provocation, really, and inspiration to live with them, because they push me, they push us, and they push me. And I think we're given a lot of messaging, actually anti-youth messaging, right?
Yes.
And I think those of us, and those of us who either live with or know or teach very young people need to push back and tell people like, go seek them out, and that messaging is wrong. Yes. A question came to us. Are you planning future collaborations right now? Are there collaborations in your future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still working on the self-help and wellness with the library and Venus Washington, another amazing Black woman doing a lot of healing through physical and emotional work. And yeah, absolutely, always about restoring the self, always about restoring the spirit and restoring our relationships with our ancestors and calling them in. I mean, that's where I find my hope, is that I still have the ability to do that and know that, and like find that journey within myself to them, and know that, like, yeah, after Madison proper, and I've been on the phone calls, like, and on text messaging since the last 2 days with my Asian sisters, and like, yeah, we're scared, after Madison you get scared. Between Madison and MMoCA, I hold my breath sometimes, and that's a reality. We need to like break down. What gives me hope is that there's more of us who are willing to talk about that with our kids, because that's a shock, right? You go out to like Stevens Point, you're like, wait, I'm on my way to Green Bay, and all of a sudden I got to get gas, and like, where are all these looks coming from? Mama, you didn't tell me about these looks. You didn't tell me I would be accused of this, that, and the other. I guess that's what gives me hope too, is that more of us are, like you guys were saying, more of us are calling back to our younger generation, but calling back also to our ancestors to help us heal in their present and give us that force, give us that strength to find out and slowly erode those barriers that in the state that are holding us back, and calling that out, because there's straight up fear past some proper cities in this state, and we need to really we gotta be real about that. We gotta be real about those voices, and like understand that there's Latinos living and working in rural Wisconsin who don't have the freedom, who don't have the freedom to speak freely. Yeah.
My collaboration has been around voter rights for Latinos in Milwaukee, and I've just had some wonderful partnerships, both with individuals and community organizations and nonprofits and some businesses. We're trying to make more inroads with the faith communities. And so working more with the area colleges as well, and even with the schools, Milwaukee Public Schools and otherwise. So I'm pretty excited about the collaborations that I've been a part of. It's been great.
Well, the Wisconsin Latinx History Collective would not exist without collaborations. So we have individuals, faculty, students, staff, and community researchers, but we're established institutions have been reaching out in the past 6 months or so, and we're exploring all kinds of ways to support the agenda of documenting Latinx history in the state, but also creating within their institution something that will advance the use of the materials and the collections that we're building. So this is all collaboration within the collective. And it's been remarkable. And I'm excited to see what the institutions will do after playing with us for a year or two and seeing what our researchers produce. So I could do nothing without all the people that are collaborating, nothing.
Collaboration has been very, very interesting, just from my point of view, because I'm a student activist, and having my institution understand where they're wrong has been very difficult. You'd be surprised how much hate you really get. But it's like, it's been a struggle knowing that staff may or may not like me, but the things that have came out of it in collaboration have been helping the homeless, helping like Black people know where money is, where jobs are, showing more like liberation in their education, where they can speak on their own behalf without having crazy looks in class, what microaggression means and things like that in school. So because you don't ever want people to be scared to learn. And I feel like a lot of young students are scared to learn because of institutions, but the growing collaboration with students and like predominantly white institutions it's slowly trying to bond. It's not there yet, but it's on.
No, it's not.
It's not there, but it's very low, but it's crawling.
Getting there.
Yeah, but the work, oh my gosh. But me, like collaborations, I like to collaborate with an audience. So I do performance work, and the collaboration I'm working on is a performance through gesture and dance with an audience that releases emotion. So they understand that emotion is important. Even in times like this where you don't want to feel emotion, it's okay to feel that way, but you still have emotion. So that's something, a script I'm working on in collaboration with hopefully a big community of people, but we shall see.
Keep us posted.
I will.
I'm gonna pose, we're coming up to the last few minutes of our hour, and I wanna pose our last, oh, I'm sorry, Araceli. Did you wanna hop in there?
We were both just sad that it's almost over.
Oh, I know. Emotion, we are like the translators of our emotion, right? I feel like that's a lot of my charge. So thank you, Añamarie, for that word. So as a final sort of question to you all, for those who are listening, who are not Latinx, and especially white folks who may want to be in solidarity, what words would you give in, like, 20 words or fewer, or in short, what provocation would you give to people who want to be in solidarity and want to learn and be educated and know about the Latinx struggle? What would each of you say as a parting sort of provocation? This is what I would like you to do next. Just the way those signs kind of are directing and giving a provocation. What would you give as instruction to those who want to support and have solidarity?
I would say we welcome your energy, your mind, and your heart. When you come to us, come with listening ears. Vine Deloria, an old Native American scholar, wrote a book, something like We Talk, You Listen, Indian View on the World. And he was a real in-your-face former Aimster, American Indian Movement activist. Yeah. And I love Vine's work. And so bring your listening ears. We talk, listen, and let us lead. Let us lead. We have ideas, we have strategies. We can learn from each other, yes. But when it comes to setting the agenda for what people of color need, let us do that, please. We live it. We know it's broken every day. So that's come with an open mind, heart, bring your talents to the table, but let us speak and let us lead the agenda, the platform for justice. Those are my words.
I completely agree with you. You just went off, and I was just going to tell you, you just went off. And yes, like, let us speak, let us lead, let us show what we went through, what we want, why we want it.
And that we're capable, we're capable of directing our future. It may not be easy. We're going to have allies, et cetera, but we are capable of solving problems rather than someone to be pitied or some other paternal way of looking at us. We're self-sufficient, and our survival through what we go through is testimony that we're self-sufficient and we're problem solvers. So let us lead.
Let us lead while you learn.
Yes.
It's a good way to, I like both of what they were saying in terms of allyship. Absolutely.
So beautiful. I guess what I wrote something a while back We are the message of better ways in doing things and undoing the shame of being poor with the racial recollection and redistributions of systems. We can do this, and we will all win 100 times over. We went to the games, but the final round has yet to begin.
Ooh.
Wow.
Oh.
That was in my little journal.
Bien trabajo. That's beautiful, Araceli. Oh, wow. You're gonna have to send me that one,
She's a poet.
please.
Poeta.
Gracias a todos ustedes.
Final words. Okay.
Let's keep on creating. That is my message to all of us. All of us. Keep on creating.
Keep putting it
So
out.
many. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said gotta keep putting it out there.
Yes. So many inspiring words. So many inspiring words. Thank you. Thank you all. Those are such provocations, and I'm so moved. Thank you for your poetry, for your inspiration, for your work. And I guess as parting thoughts, everyone, please go and see Patrick Martinez's work online on his Instagram or down on State Street, and keep following the work of Latinx artists and activists. Thank you. Thanks so much for hosting this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Te
Thank
queremos
you.
mucho, Dana.
Thank you. Thank you. Adios.